This is what countries will have to do in order to get into them. Move all their embassies to Jerusalem. Argentina will move theirs in the spring. It's the 8th nation to do so. They will have to label Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorist organizations. They will have to promise to flip in the UN and the OAS votes and start to vote with Israel. They will have to agree to intelligence sharing against China and Iran influence in Venezuela, Cuba, and Bolivia. They will be required to build a pro-US regional bloc to counter BRICS. Then they have said with Europe turning hostile to Israel post-Gaza, we are now shifting towards the global south.
Oh my God.
The Isaac Accords. They are laughing at us, you guys. First, we've got the Abraham Accords. Now we've got the Isaac Accords.
We have the sun, right?
Before we dive into the geopolitics, can you give them our biblical a little bit of biblical context? We did it in the space station, but I'd love to hear it from you because of your background.
All right. So we have Abraham, considered to be the father of the monotheistic tradition, specifically the Abrahamic faith, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. And he has this famous sequence where he's going up and, God has sort of tested him, said, will you sacrifice your son? Said, I'm ready to sacrifice, right? And so we have this whole scene, and we have also the sacrifice, and then we have the salvation that comes from that, right? Where instead God says, okay, you love me enough. I know you're gonna put the dagger in and burn him or whatever. Please don't stop. Time out. You're one of mine, right? But the deeper thing is the line of descendants and how people claim lineage to Abraham, right? So we have on one side, we have Islam, who claims lineage to Abraham through who? Do you remember?
Ismail?
Yes, Ishmael. Okay, good. Oh my God. Sarah. Ahle. You're getting an A in biblical studies class. So we have Ishmael. And then we have the Jews who descend from which other son?
Isaac.
Aha, there we go. So it's a very interesting, see, the Abraham Accords, I like the name because it also includes Muslims in that. The Isaac Accords cuts the other way and actually doesn't include Islam as a branch necessarily. Because if you read it that way, like when I hear Isaac Accords, I'm like, oh, that's done strategically because now they're trying to bifurcate the whole thing. Actually, we're also in a different direction here. So I think that the name is very interesting.
There's the story. Doesn't Isaac sell his birthright? Does it somebody sell their birthright or... I don't remember.
The stories about Isaac's life also are quite interesting. I think the more interesting part, because this is related specifically with peace and with the broader context of what happened in Gaza, right? The genocide, ecocide, everything that happened in Gaza, is that this is much more, I would say, antagonistic towards the other branch, towards Islam, but towards the other branch of Abraham. And it's kind of playing on that. If you read it that way, it can play on it very much. And that's why when I first heard it, I was like, oh, that was a strategic move. Somebody really thought about that one.
So let's get into it a little bit. So we have this Isaac Accords. It's a new initiative quietly launched this year. It's getting like zero attention. I think we've covered it, the Cradle, and then maybe Jerusalem Post. It's the Isaac Accords, a project designed to formalize a political, economic, and security bloc between Israel and Latin America. It was created through a new US-based nonprofit called the American Friends of Isaac Accords, which I thought was interesting that its acronym is AFOIA. FOIA. Very interesting. They're always doing stuff like that. And it's seeded with funds from the Genesis Prize Foundation. And the initiative is directly tied to this year's Genesis Prize laureate. Now, what you guys are like, what the hell is the Genesis Prize? Well, the Genesis Prize is, quote, the most prestigious award in the Jewish world. See, if you guys remember, the Nobel Prizes were all won by Jews because they used to have a special voting system. And when the Nobel Committee changed that voting system, they created the Genesis Awards because I really hate that where the world is like this. So the Genesis Awards are really only given to Jews or people that are helping Jews and making a difference in sort of Jewish. Time magazine calls it the Jewish Nobel Prize. These are their words. I'm not coming. This is not me. Okay. So who won this year's Genesis Prize? Oh, they're interesting name, right? The Genesis Prize?
The Genesis Prize. That's it.
Who won it this year? There he is. There he is. There he is. there's Milei, just an absolute psychopath, right? So he wins it this year.
He's a great economist, didn't you know?
Yeah, fantastic. Anyway, so the Isaac Accords are described by Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon as a way to counter regional hostility toward the Jewish state and pull undecided Latin American countries into Israel's orbit. Keep that in the back of your mind. Who is the most hostile to the Jewish state in South America? Keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to talk about this. The AFOIA itself was also founded with the Genesis Prize Foundation. And we'll go into a little bit of that. That was founded by a group of Russian-Israeli. I hate when they say Russian-Israeli. Soviet-Israeli. Would rather say, Russian-speaking Israeli billionaires. Friedman, Abin, Khan, Polovets, and Nasser, and historically tied to both the Israeli government and diaspora political networks. Now, this year, the Isaac Accords is a new thing. And so they're making it so the Genesis Prize awardee will then give their prize, which is $1 million, to the Isaac Accords. So it's a nice little money laundering scheme. So Milei gets his prize money and then turns it around and says, I am going to reinvest this back into the cause. Here's a clip of his acceptance speech.
Israel es un ejemplo radical de todos estos valores que hicieron a Occidente grande, porque en su fundación era poco más que un desierto, y en tan solo casi 80 años fue convertido, gracias al trabajo incansable de sus ciudadanos, en un oasis de prosperidad y crecimiento. Por eso, apoyar a Israel es necesario para nuestro país, porque significa apoyar los valores que hace 100 años nos hicieron grandes, pero que abandonamos y por abandonarnos nos hundimos en la miseria. Es así que hoy más que nunca tenemos que redoblar nuestro compromiso con el bien y la verdad, tanto dentro como fuera del país. Hoy más que nunca es nuestro deber moral defender la verdad de estos valores judeocristianos, porque sin lugar a dudas, en ese compromiso férreo con el bien, sin importar las críticas, el que le muestra al mundo que hoy somos un país mejor. Y esto es también algo necesario para hacer a la Argentina grande nuevamente. Muchas gracias a todos por su atención. Que Dios lo bendiga y que la fuerza del cielo nos acompañen. I'm Israel High.
I'm Israel High.
Hi.
Jesus, seriously, everybody's making things great again. He is the new tropical Trump. If you guys don't remember, Bolsonaro was our old tropical Trump, who, by the way, last week tried to cut his ankle bracelet off with a soldering iron and escape to the United States. He's back in prison. You really can't it's a telenovela down there. It's not even, we're laughing, but Jesus, it's not even funny. So anyway, back to this Genesis Prize thing. It was launched. Here we go. Here's the homepage. There she is. There she is. There she is. Miss
Wonder Woman.
This Israeli actress, Wonder Woman. Anyway, it was. We told you guys it was founded by 5 Jewish philanthropists back in 2013. The idea itself was created in 2012 with the help of none other than Eli Wiesel, who we all know now as complete fabricationist and fantasist. Every year they give $1 million to their prize money. It is a distinguished committee of Jewish leaders, philanthropists, and figures, evaluates nominees based on professional excellence, Jewish engagement, and societal impact. Ceremony is held in Jerusalem. As of November 2025, every laureate has donated the full prize money to charitable causes. And like I said, from now on, it will most likely be donated to the Isaac Accords or something similar. Some noted laureates include Natalie Portman, of course, because where would we be without Natalie Portman?
Oh, yeah.
Robert Kraft, Milei. Oh, look at this. Israeli organizations and activists. And look at this one. Jewish activists and NGOs supporting Ukraine. But I digress. About the prize.
Interesting.
A little blurb here. The mission of the Genesis Prize is to foster Jewish identity, inspire Jewish pride, and strengthen the bond between Israel and the diaspora. Keep all these things in the back of your mind as we continue to talk about this. Under impact is the other place I wanted to take you guys really quickly. Under the Israel Latin American one is where you'll find more information about what's going on with the Isaac Accords right over here, down here. And then they have tons of links to what's going on. Yalla, Israel, you can't make it up. Oh, Stand With Us is down there too. Some of you guys might be familiar with that. Here's the other one, Supporting Ukraine. There she is.
There she is.
There she is. Look at all the stuff they do in Ukraine. Access Israel, blue check Ukraine. Here's the one where they propagandize children through trauma therapy. They're all over the place. Hillel International, Israel Aid. I guess that's like USAID. I don't know. Like it's just on and on and on. And there's Barbara Streisand. Papa, can you hear me? It's insane. So please, guys, please help me push back against the conspiracy theorists. I just wanted to show you that as well while we continue to go through this Genesis prize. Core pillars of the Isaac Accords. This is what countries will have to do in order to get into them. Move all their embassies to Jerusalem. Argentina will move theirs in the spring. It's the 8th nation to do so. They will have to label Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorist organizations. They will have to promise to flip in the UN and the OAS votes and start to vote with Israel. Latin America has historically voted 70% against Israel on Palestinian resolutions. They will be required to invest in agrotech, water tech, and innovation trade. If you guys know anything, Israel is very big on buying agricultural and water rights in countries around the world. They own part of the water rights in countries like El Salvador and other places. They will have to promote, this is important, promote student youth exchanges and anti-Semitism education programs. Joint anti-terrorism pacts. They will have to agree to intelligence sharing against China and Iran influence in Venezuela, Cuba, and Bolivia. They will be required to build a pro-U.S. regional bloc to counter BRICS and strengthen U.S. allies in the global South as traditional Western support for Israel has been eroding, right? They're giving up on Europe. They are pivoting. You guys have to pay attention to this stuff. This rollout this year, obviously, Argentina is the first member. He is the rollout pioneer. The target countries for this year are Uruguay, Panama, which the United States has already taken care of, but trying to kick China out, and Costa Rica, where projects are already underway. Next year, this is also ties right back into a bow. We have Brazil, Chile, hopefully Colombia, because they're interfering with the election there, and El Salvador, right? Then they have on their official watch list Paraguay, Guatemala, and Honduras. You guys see what the play is here? You guys see what's going on? You guys see why there's a carrier strike group off the coast of Venezuela and it ain't for fentanyl?
No, it's definitely not for fentanyl. If it was for fentanyl, they had to just go to Langley, go down the street.
So the Isaac Accords was officially launched in Buenos Aires, and there's Milei with Gideon Saar. And so that's where we're at. We have the Isaac Accords. Running the American Friends of the Isaac Accords is Ambassador Fitz Haney. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Costa Rica. He's worked for Citibank, Procter & Gamble, Pepsi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are officially tracking 3 indicators of success. Public opinion shifts. They will be measuring pro-Israel attitudes via polling and social analytics. Cultural and economic exchange by flights, student programs, and economic deals. And political realignment by voting in the UN and OAS, new embassies, and terrorism designation. And they have said with Europe turning hostile to Israel post-Gaza, we are now shifting towards the global South.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I want to stress to our viewers, we approach the Venezuelan war. I approach it from a non-Zionist motivation angle. And I was really just focused on Trump and America and the oil and the BRICS and the China. And now it's this. And I'm like, I hate it. I hate this so much. This is written by Jared Kushner because it's a carbon copy of the Abraham Accords adapted for Latin America. So this is not being done without Trump's knowledge.
I did a video in Venezuela this summer when I was there, and I went to the fortress, the citadel at the top of the hill where Hugo Chavez is buried. And you know what is prominently behind his coffin next to the Venezuelan flag? The Palestinian flag. The flags at Hugo Chavez's coffin, at his mausoleum, are the Venezuelan flag and the Palestinian flag. I want you to know that and remember that. Venezuela is supporting Palestine. Venezuela supported Syria under Assad, supported Hezbollah, supported Iran, supported the resistance, and supports Palestine from day one till now. Just remember that when you see potentially jets flying over Caracas and bombing presidential palace at Miraflores and things like that, just remember that Maduro never once waved the Israeli flag, but every time waved the Palestinian flag and had the keffiyeh around his neck. Just remember that, because that is part of the equation here, no doubt about it.
What did Machado say? One of her first things would be to open it up to privatization and move the embassy. And they're all saying the same thing. You come to us, Habibi. You won't need Saudi Arabia anymore. It's very, very scary. This needs to be taken seriously. So I guess it's time for our once in a while tinfoil hat segment. Oh. I was in a space yesterday. A very kind woman named Donna came to me and started saying, "Have you heard of this organization called Kulanu?" And I was like, "No, I don't know." You know, these little organizations, I don't really pay them a whole lot of mind. But I did. I looked into this one and I said, "Oh, wow, this is interesting." So here is Kulanu. They are a organization that goes and finds hidden Jewish communities inside of South America. Really, really wild stuff. It's the word Kulanu means he is Hebrew for all of us. It was founded in 1994 after the Ethiopian airlifts. Its mission is to identify, support, and sometimes convert emerging, isolated, and returning Jewish communities around the world, mostly deep inside of South America. Their focus in the region is, quote, this is them saying it, crypto Jews, descendants of Sephardic Jews who fled the Inquisition in 1492 and kept Jewish traditions in secret for centuries, from remote Peruvian tribes to underground Brazilian shoals. Kulanu is now handing out grants. They obviously are a legal nonprofit. They're ran by Jack and Diane Zeller. And I went through and I obviously looked into their operations. They have things in Brazil, Suriname, Peru, Colombia, Puerto Rico, where they are finding. So for instance, in Brazil, they gave 80,000 to some weird Orthodox group to facilitate conversions. In Peru, they've created an Incan Sephardic crypto Jewish community.
Yes. I know about this because there's a Peruvian family that went over to Zionist.
Correct. So I was like, okay, this is very small. So I was like, this can't be that major. Are there other organizations like this? There are hundreds that are working inside of South America to convince tribal people that they're Jewish, to teach people about Jewish ancestry. There's one called Jutina, which is a new nonprofit focused on cultivating and celebrating Latin Jewish identity. There's a Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies. There's a group called Shavei Israel, which calls itself an organization to locate individuals and groups who are the lost Jews. It's crazy. It's so nuts. I don't want to get too deep into it, but this is wild, guys. I don't like. It's just it's wild, guys. Go through this stuff and see what's really going on.
I don't even know what to think anymore about. Like, this stuff is definitely, without a doubt, on one side soft power of the Zionist project. On the other side, totally and without question, part of Mossad intelligence, networking, gathering, and operations. No doubt in my mind that they are extending their networks into all of these areas around the world.
The cherry on, or the icing on this horrible cake is that every single one said, we don't operate in Venezuela because it's too hostile.
Maybe that's why Daddy Trump has to go in with B2.
Maduro holding it down. Can he let the NGOs in?
Listen, you have to think about it this way. The Zionists, forget about Judaism as a religion because they're great. I don't have a problem with them, whatever. I'm not, anti-Semitic in any sense of the term. But I want to say that the Zionist project has always been at the forefront about ensuring their power and survival. And by doing that, they have, of course, infiltrated Jewish communities, and they have located semi-Jewish, kind of messianic, all this kind of, even like borderline like evangelicals who like the Old Testament. they've identified these communities and they've tried to build and expand their influence within them. So much so that in my travels in Latin America, sometimes I'll see a random restaurant with an Israeli flag and I'm like, are they Jewish? And they're like, no, they're evangelical Christian.
Yes. See, that's another thing we talked about in the space yesterday. Brazil is being completely subverted by evangelicals that are staunch Zionists. So that's another method that they're using.
Absolutely.
In places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Protestantism, a lot of these much more extreme kind of evangelical or charismatic or Pentecostal kind of Christians, they are totally about Israel.
Yeah. And that was, for some reason, that was an easy segue in Brazil. They converted those Catholics very easily over to Protestantism, more so than a lot of the other South American countries. But Brazil is very much not needing any of these sort of Zionist programs because they're just going to go after Lula next election. And all of these evangelicals are there.
Of course. And for Orthodox Christian, by far the most inoculated to this kind of garbage about Israel are the Orthodox Christians, because Orthodox Christianity has so if you have the Pentarchy, which are the 5 ancient seats of the bishoprics, the sort of ancestral sees of Christianity, Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, Jerusalem, Alexandria. Jerusalem, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem, Theophilus, his official title says, of all Palestine. Not Israel, Palestine. The church is the new Israel. Israel as a political entity for the Jewish people no longer exists, cannot exist, was part of the New Testament. I will destroy the temple and remake it. That was Christ himself. The church now is the broader. It went from a very particular ethno-religious group to a universalizing group, to a universal church, to a universal community, salvation for all. And all of creation. So in this way, I think about now that I'm here in Russia and speaking with a lot of Orthodox Christians, they don't, what Israel? Mm-hmm. What, please? Actually, the title of Moscow throughout history has been Third Rome, Second Jerusalem. And there's a church here that's built as an exact replica of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, here in Moscow, outside of Moscow. So I just want people to think about that the different Christianities the different branches have their own tendencies. And for sure, the Protestants are the weak link because they have the least amount of tradition historically to ancient Christianity. And they are more biblically based, which lends much more credence to the Old Testament as a separate entity and trying to even incorporate Old Testament laws and rules, which were totally abrogated by Jesus in the New Testament, right? So I just want people to recognize that when they're thinking about this, and that's the power that the Zionists have identified in trying to propel themselves into some of these branches of Christianity to strengthen their power and to garner more support. That's huge at this point.